Do you think you've heard about cruel methods of punishment? What if I told you that some medieval machines were designed to make death seem like a relief? Get ready to uncover some of humanity's most brutal and disturbing stories. Today we'll explore two of the most horrifying torture devices ever created, the rack and the head crusher. In the medieval world, human creativity seemed to have no bounds when it came to inflicting pain and suffering. One of the most feared instruments was the rack, a simple yet devastating device. The victim was laid out on a long wooden table with their wrists and ankles firmly tied to ropes connected to two rotating axles. With the turn of a crank, the axles began pulling the arms and legs in opposite directions. What started as a painful stretch quickly turned into a nightmare. Joints began to dislocate, bones cracked, and muscles tore under the pressure. For many, the pain became unbearable before reaching the breaking point. If the executioner chose to continue, the victim's limbs could literally be torn from their body, leaving them in pieces. This device wasn't just a tool of physical torture, but also a psychological weapon. Being placed on it made victims aware that death might be their only escape, but that wasn't always the case. Many survived with irreversible damage, condemned to live a life of physical suffering and social exclusion. But medieval brutality didn't stop there. Another device as cruel, if not worse, was the head crusher. Imagine being forced to place your head in a small space between two metal plates with no chance of escape. The prisoner's head was carefully positioned under the metallic structure. At the top, a crank connected to a screw began to turn. Slowly, the metal plate pressed against the victim's skull. The process was deliberately slow, forcing the person to endure increasing pain as the skull deformed and bones started to collapse. For many, the head crusher caused not only a slow and agonizing death, but also left the victim's face unrecognizable. The psychological impact of this instrument was as devastating as the physical. Just the sight of it was enough to make anyone confess to crimes, often non-existent ones. But the horror wasn't limited to machines. Even before these devices appeared, ancient Persians had equally terrifying execution methods. They trained war elephants to crush the heads of criminals. These elephants were instructed to use their massive feet to obliterate a victim's skull with a single blow. This method served not only as punishment, but also as public spectacle, demonstrating the empire's power and intimidating anyone who dared defy its laws. Though it seems unthinkable now, these methods were widely accepted and often even celebrated as a way to maintain order. Looking back, these practices make us reflect on humanity's capacity to inflict suffering in the name of justice or revenge. The history of these devices reminds us of a dark past where suffering was a tool of control. But have we really evolved that much? Or has human cruelty simply taken on new forms? If you think it's important to remember these stories to ensure they never happen again, like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And tell us in the comments, which of these methods do you find the most horrifying? Until the next video, where we'll explore more dark curiosities from history.